Gamecock fans, now you can have your coffee and also support the Gamecocks in a championship quest to get to the top of the SEC and the top of the country by going to GamecockCoffee.com and purchasing Rise and Shine New Orleans Roast Gourmet Coffee. All of your purchases go to benefit Garnet Trust and put NIL dollars in the coffer of the Gamecocks official NIL collective. Check it out today and support the Gamecocks NIL effort. Good morning, Gamecock fans. JC Shurburtt here with you. It is Wednesday, February 19th, the year of our Lord 2025, and this is Coffee, sponsored by Rise and Shine New Orleans Roast Gourmet Coffee. That's right, folks. Coffee sponsoring coffee. GamecockCoffee.com is the web address. Every bag of the delicious New Orleans Roast Gourmet Coffee and also the popcorn product on there, gourmet popcorn, at GamecockCoffee.com goes to support Garnet Trust 100%. I kind of tied it in with this. It's not really a sponsorship. In other words, I'm not monetizing that part of it myself. Wanted to help NIL out and certainly work with the Garnet Trust in a consulting capacity, as you guys know. And wanted to, we talked to this company that does it. They do it at other schools, LSU included, out of New Orleans. And proud to partner with them and established GamecockCoffee.com. So coffee, popcorn, all of it goes to Garnet Trust. Certainly, when you look at the basketball result last night, Gamecocks fall to LSU 81-67. Speaking of Louisiana, I've said many times, and we'll get into this on shows other than this one since we're really football focused here. But I don't think NIL is the main catalyst for what happened this season. I do think that NIL can fix it, though. I definitely, that's the way you fix it. If you want to do basketball, obviously football needs dollars, baseball needs dollars, softball, women's basketball, all the sports need NIL dollars. Even with revenue share coming, the dollar amount that NIL collectives need to have on hand is less than 8 figures a year. I mean, it was 20-30 million that they were kind of charged to come up with outside of athletic department funds. Prior, that number probably, is less than five. If you can get 8 figures, great. If you come up a little short, fine too. It's in many ways supplemental and a differentiator. And what it does is, it helps, some of these schools are going to have more NIL dollars on top of the traditional revenue share. And then what organizations like Garnet Trust do is they, generate revenue through programs like this, where you're selling things, you're partnering with businesses, and then memberships, because memberships aren't donor money. You can't use donor money anymore, according to the House settlement, assuming it all goes through with the lawsuit. And then they turn around and provide dollars for players in traditional real NIL deals with various businesses, media outlets, public appearances, signings, things like that. So it's a good deal. So that's kind of how it all works. If you're wondering where the money goes now that you have to kind of get things approved and stuff like that, there's a plan in place behind that. But you can support it. Some people don't want to do a membership. They'd rather get something in return, and I totally understand that. I mean, that's things are too expensive these days. I wish we were selling eggs, really, at a discount, But you can get the coffee and you get the popcorn and enjoy it. It's very good, high quality product. Another good idea that they did at LSU, or actually I think it was Tulane, businesses around the area that supported Tulane, they would buy a lot of the coffee for their office, and that way it's a tax write-off for your business too, because it's a business expense. So check it out, GamecockCoffee.com. Rise and Shine New Orleans Roast. You folks that know me and we're part of Carolina Rise will probably recognize the logo. So that the Rise logo is back. So those of you that wear your Carolina Rise gear around, keep wearing it, because it's now a coffee brand which is fine with me. That's good. Good to see that. I like the logo, the Carolina Rise logo. So it stays alive. But certainly very excited about this, and you know, it kind of all ties together, synergies, marketing, things like that. The most important thing is though, get those dollars in for NIL for the Gamecocks. There's a need there to go above and beyond in all sports. Men's basketball is going to be very important in this capacity because what's going to happen is with rev share, football is going to take up a chunk, right? So if you're talking about 20.5 million or whatever, football is going to take up 15. That's just the standard and the price to pay, and they bring in the most, so it's fair, right? And the other sports are going to need those dollars too. And men's basketball, of the rest of the sports left over, it's a revenue sport as well. And because you have schools out there, Gonzaga, and I don't, they're not even winning all that big this year. Their NIL for men's basketball is 11 million. I now look, that's what was published, right? So it's probably less than that. And so, I think that in the SEC, when you kind of talk about collectives and NIL and things like that, they're not going away. It's going to be important to kind of get behind all this. The good news is, I mean, heck, if you buy a lot of coffee, you get a lot of coffee. If you buy a lot of popcorn, you get a lot of popcorn. So there's something in it for you too. If you're not, averse to membership, if you want to do both, that's fine too. So go to GamecockCoffee.com and support the Garnet Trust and support me in my endeavor, just as far as results go. Like I said, I'm not getting rich off this, so it's a labor of love to do because I monetize this in other ways on YouTube and things like that. But it encapsulate my other sponsor. So check it out. So a little mini NIL pep talk there to get started. Want to apologize for not having a show yesterday, folks. I had another death in the family, and this is about 8 since 2023 around this time. My family and I, my wife and I, it was our stepkid's grandfather, who I was friends with, my wife and I took him, his son, their father passed away in April. And so Jack was his name, Korean War vet, damn fine American, one of the best human beings I've ever met in my life. And in an awkward situation was extremely kind to me. I mean, his son was married to my wife. It has to be awkward. But he was a first class individual and a great American. Like I said, fought in Korea, served in Korea. Just a fine guy, and just passed away suddenly. It was just about 30 minutes before I went on the show. And because that continues to happen around here, I felt like I needed to take some time to make sure everybody was okay. And that's my responsibility. And they certainly make sure I'm okay when I've had situations like this pop up. And so I owed it to them to kind of have 100% of my focus on my family during this time. Can't guarantee I won't have to miss. We won't. I don't know about coffee, but the show, there may be a wake or something that comes up later this week. But I knocked this out early enough in the morning to kind of get it done. But we're all very sad around here. But that's life. I think I'm kind of at that age at 48 where I was lucky. My mother's only 19 years older than I am, and I was lucky to. When I was born, my grandmother was 45, and so she had 46 great years. 40, well, I'm sorry, 47 great years on Earth with her around. Didn't really experience a whole lot of death until my dad died in 1995. I still had a great grandmother until 2000. Um, so it's an eye opening for yours truly a little bit. So just keep us in your thoughts and prayers. Don't want to get too sappy or sad about that, but want to share that with you guys because I'm kind of an open book. I feel like You need to be authentic if you're going to have people listen to you. And, I didn't want you guys to think that, there's some laziness or inconsistency with this show, because certainly I wouldn't have done it if I didn't want to deliver. So there you go. But like I said, basketball loses last night, 81-67 on the men's side to LSU. They never really were in the game, maybe early. LSU shot pretty well, thorough beating on the road. Now Texas comes in Saturday night. We'll see what happens. This team does play better at home, but 0-13. Who'd have thunk it? But NIL, like I said, GamecockCoffee.com. Check that out. That's gonna save it, or that's gonna be a way to save it. I don't want to say there's any kind of magic bullet, because then the league's too tough. So that's there's no guarantees with anything in the SEC, in any sport, it seems these days. Football's been actually the least brutal. If you look at football, women's basketball is actually kind of having a rebound, resurgent as a conference season. I think a couple of years it was South Carolina and everybody else, but in baseball, bloodbath. You see where Ole Miss ruled Clemson over the weekend. They're not even supposed to be that good. But basketball, crazy. Football, actually, heck, the Gamecocks are one of the best teams in the league, if you want to get right down to it. And we're going to kind of dig in on some football here in a second. Baseball on the diamond last night. Gamecocks do defeat Winthrop 5-3. Close game. If you're concerned about that, John Whittle's watched Winthrop baseball every year, and they've got a bunch of new players and a new coach, a new playing surface, obviously. And the Gamecocks ended up winning 5-3, but Whittle said that's a pretty good team they beat. I don't know what the status is of the game with Queens tonight. As I understand, there's some weather coming in. Where I'm at, it's been 8 degrees the last couple of days. So on top of everything else, it's the worst weather of the year. It snowed last week and none of it's melted. So anyway, that's kind of the morning update to kind of get you guys caught up with everything. There will be an Inside the Gamecocks, the show this afternoon, with myself and Phil. We will return to that. Also, right now, I have Darren Usher scheduled as a guest of Phil and I on Thursday, the director of player personnel for Gamecock football. So lots of recruiting talk on the show on Thursday, so be sure to check that out. So, looking at this roster for football next year, and by the way, I have a lot to say on the show today. It was a shame that kind of happened, because I had a monster bunch of topics between this. They're meeting, the Big Ten and SEC are meeting in New Orleans about the playoff. I read Heather Dinich's sourced update this morning on ESPN.com. It pissed me off even more. Some of the things not so much. I have to question a lot with that, and I think that they're considering fans. I mean, less and less, and it's about dollars, and I'm like, look, I understand everybody needs to generate revenue, but wow, I mean, why are you going to crap all over the fans and crap all over what fans want, and crap all over, you're killing the golden goose, so to speak. And then I made the mistake of listening to some podcast on the way back from the gym the other day about the SEC, and I'm just like, man, these guys don't know much about South Carolina at all. I mean, and so I want to talk about that. I'm going to defend the SEC. There's lots of stuff going on football wise, but one of the things that this staff has been really good at, and I sort of got this idea from John Strickland, and you can catch his Talking Ball segment on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe to that. It's free. Was he said this staff's really good about finding guys at lower levels that he said, well, it's either players from other big schools that haven't always produced, with the exception of Rocket Sanders, obviously, and probably Trey Knox too, I would throw in there. A lot of these guys, either players from lower level schools or players from higher level schools, And I'm including before everybody's like, the ACC's a group of five conference. I feel you. But I'm counting Power Four. We have to draw the line somewhere, right? Because I'm not so sure that when we look at individual talent and draft stats and all that, the ACC doesn't have more individual talent than the Big Ten. But that's a debate for another day. So, Power Four versus Group of Five versus FCS. And there have been, and even D2 when you talk about Mario Anderson 2 years ago, and then what he did at Memphis this year. So, and John was talking about how the players from the portal are that way. And they were looking at the draft combine invites. And there's a lot of balance between quote unquote homegrown, i.e., guys they signed out of JUCO or high school, and then portal guys. I mean, and so you look at I'm talking Taurus Ellie Simpkins came from North Carolina Central, and I did an article on the Big Spur this past weekend, kind of breaking all those guys down. The average high school ranking of Carolina's portal players that were invited to the combine was 0.8558, according to 24/7 Sports Composite. That's just a solid 3-star, nothing special. Highest ranked player was Rocket Sanders coming out of high school, obviously, and even Simpkins was 0 stars. He was not ranked, so I took the 0 out of it, because the 0 that's an outlier and it drags the number down to 0.71, and not all of these players out of high school were just completely off the radar. Nobody just thought they were going to be what they were. And so today, I look at this portal class coming in because we want to look forward, right? And how are you going to replace all of this talent that's left, that's is departed? Well, part of the way you do that is through the portal. South Carolina got 13 portal players in window A. Probably are either done or we'll get one more, maybe 2 if somebody leaves after spring, because the roster limits are, South Carolina's getting up there. I think they're 84 right now. So there's not much space. But, if they find the white whale, the receiver that they really want, that they're willing to, it's not a bank buster for not much in return, or however they structure it. Or if they find another D tackle, I could see them going. Also a big end. I could see that, a good one. They're not just going to go sign anybody. And there's some players out there, though, that you're like, well, no matter what position he plays, if he wants to, if they want to come, that's obviously it. But nobody comes to mind there. So 13 right now. 5 of them are from lower level, and including the first guy I'm going to talk about, Rasul Faison from Utah State. ESPN was talking about of the teams in the way too early top 25, and South Carolina is number 10 on that list. Who's the best portal pickup? And they said Faison. They said he was one of the sneaky best pickups in the portal in the country. Lots of schools did want him. Florida State thought they had him for a while. And so with Faison, obviously he steps in. We've talked about the running back room. I believe there's going to be a lot of competition there. I don't think he's just going to be the guy. When Rocket came in with Attaway and Howell and Fuller. And so there was, and DJ Braswell was still there too. So there was some competition. But I don't think there was any doubt in anybody's mind he would be the guy, if healthy, because he rehabbed for all that length of time, came back healthy, and it's Rocket. And he got the lion's share of the carries. And I thought that was smart. They didn't overrun him or anything because they brought Attaway in to kind of spell him in that role as the backup running back. And Juju McDowell got some run as well. But, man, if you got Rocket, use Rocket. And they had Rocket, so they used him. So hats off to Markel Blackwell. No arguments with how he used the guys there. I don't see Faison as that guy that's definitely like, okay, as long as he's healthy, he's getting it. Maybe he does. I think he's a hell of a back. Obviously, he's coming from Utah State. That is a group of 5 program. Competes in the Mountain West. They're joining the Pac-12, which will be a group of 5 league with 7, 8 teams in it here pretty soon. But they went 4-8 last year, but he rushed for over 1,000 yards. He's got 1,800 rushing yards, and really put up numbers in against some of the better teams on their schedule, like UNLV and Boise State. They got blistered by Southern Cal, but he had some yards. Maybe some of it was in blowout time. But good vision. I've compared him to a less physical Corey Boyd before. Good pickup. So let's talk about the jump. Can he make a jump? Yes, I think the talent's there. All these guys, I'm going to say yes to that. My question would be, I need to get a weight on him because there's talk around the internet, 220. It keeps coming back, being listed at 200. They updated some newcomer heights and weights. It's still 200. And I'm not saying 200-pound backs can't cut it. I'm just saying it's a little light. It's a little light. You look at some of the other updated things. Jawarn Howell's 221 pounds. Matthew Fuller's 225, 219 maybe. Attaway's 220, something like that. But Faison's maybe a different kind of back. I mean, as long as he can break tackles and there's strength. I mean, you don't have to weigh a lot to be strong. You're naturally strong, that kind of thing. And so we'll see what happens. He's a very patient runner, good vision. I think he's going to be right in the thick of the running back battle. Don't ask me who's going to win that because I have no idea. I like all of them. Give me all of them. I'm a fat man at a barbecue buffet, man. Just give it all to me. Just give it all to me, except liver. No liver, but there's no liver in this running back room. But I think can he make the transition? Yes. Is he a Rocket Sanders level guy? I don't think so. Like by saying that, I mean I don't think it's a no brainer. He's the starter. The weight thing would be a concern, but I believe he's capable of, like all these guys, of doing it. There's just questions, and we'll see what happens. When Strickland was talking about this subject, he mentioned player development, and I do think that there's player development, which is sort of a broad-based, long-term process, right? But there's also coaching up and tweaking, and I like with Kyle Kennard. I talked to a source, contact, whatever you want to call it. I don't like the word source. I talked to a Georgia Tech contact about Kennard when he was there, because he was, he put up tons of big numbers consistently at South Carolina with all the sacks and tackles for loss. And at Georgia Tech, you would look at his game by game, and there'd be games he'd disappear. And then Wake Forest, he's got 3 or 4 sacks, or then, Georgia, he's making plays. And it was inconsistency and mistakes. He's a great person. He's not like it's kind of like that whole Lamont Paris basketball character thing, football character thing. And look, he made some mistakes at South Carolina too, penalty-wise. But that was their contention with him. And, so he left and he goes to the Gamecocks, and Sterling Lucas tweaked it and fine-tuned his ability. And honestly, with a player that's only there a year, that's hard, number one, because these guys are older and have their habits. But number two, it says a lot about Kyle taking to the coaching. It says a lot about Sterling Lucas, that he's able to get that out of it. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, Sterling Lucas spent all that time in the NFL, and you're more fine-tuning at that level than actually developing, especially with defensive ends. And, you just cut guys that aren't good. I mean, you're taking the best. But you are constantly, there's a reason they have coaches. You're constantly fine-tuning. And so this staff's done a really good job of that too. I mean, you hear the term player development, and John's absolutely right. It's all player development. But with the older players that have been developed a bit, it's more a case of maximizing, fine-tuning, finding that extra thing, be it mental, physical, fundamentally, whatever, to get them to go that extra mile and be a competitive player in this league. The second guy is a guy, and he comes from Bowling Green in the MAC, that I think that's all those things I just said. That's what Travian Robertson needs to do. with him, and that's Devontae Miles, listed at 6'5", 275. You watch his film at Bowling Green, and look, people say, hey, he's wasn't a starter at Bowling Green. Not sure he's going to be a starter here. I think he's probably a rotational guy, but we know the situation at D tackle, and we know South Carolina had a nice six-man rotation last year and needs to, and that's very beneficial. You want to keep doing that. Um, Miles, athletically, love the background. He's a basketball player. He's from the Detroit area in Michigan, which does put out defensive linemen. When you watch his film from Bowling Green, he's twitchy. He's got good ability to backside pursue, fast, in other words, for his size on the field. My question would be, I'd have to go back and look. I don't have like all 22 of Bowling Green. The physicality it takes inside to play that position, especially in this league against the teams Carolina plays against. How's he going to handle a double team? When there's two 300-pound guards, what's that line of scrimmage, nose to nose, physicality ceiling for him? And I hate to talk about things like that sometimes because it sounds like I'm questioning his courage or toughness or something. No, I just, when the pedal, whatever, the foot hits the pedal. I'm sorry, the rubber meets the road. How about that? When he's battling physically one-on-one, what's he look like? Taller guys sometimes tend to stand straight up. It's a leverage game. So those would be my questions for him. I do think he can get in the rotation. He's a player they really liked, and wasn't. He came in later on a visit after some of the other D tackles because he's visiting other schools. It wasn't. I was told it wasn't because he was a backup plan. They liked him. They thought he fit. And so there's Devontae Miles. So that would be my question there. This next guy comes from Ball State, but South Carolina will be his fifth different school. And it's interesting. Faison's from Pennsylvania. Devontae Miles is from Michigan. Miles Norwood, the corner I'm talking about now from Ball State, is from St. Louis, Missouri. So first St. Louis prospect at South Carolina since, what's his name? Kyle Markway. He's to the 27 years old. Famous Kyle Markway catch against his home state school back in 2018 on the game-winning drive. 6'1", 183. They love his speed. Look, they found this guy in the portal, and he kind of came down to Carolina and Kentucky. He, like I said, he's been to some different places. Was at Iowa State initially. Matt Campbell and his staff evaluate quite well. He may have gone to JUCO and then Iowa State. I don't know. I didn't write that down. But he played in the MAC last year. I'm not worried about his physicality, and that's what you kind of always look for with corners. Size, physical, can they tackle? Because you can cover all you want, but if you can't tackle on the perimeter, the offenses in this league, offensive coordinators are too smart. They're going to go right at you on the perimeter. I thought South Carolina's defense, one of the game-changing types of things, and the difference between this defense this year and previous defenses was you weren't going to attack the perimeter without Judge Collier or O.D. Fortune or Vakari Swain lighting you up. I mean, teams tried it. I was almost embarrassed for the other teams. They threw a little screen and it would just get blown up. Not in every game, but I was really, if there's one area I thought the corners in general made a big step forward, it was that physicality, tackling, all that good stuff. So I'm not worried about his physicality. I've seen it on film at Ball State. I think it's the second guy from Ball State in a row they've gotten. They got Brady Hunt from Ball State. But Miles Norwood is a player that I think, the question with him is going to be what position does he fit into? Now, I don't think there's any question he's definitely a corner. But who else is at corner? And who does he have to battle? And where does he fit? Would they move somebody to nickel? You got Jalewis Solomon back there. You've got Judge Collier. I mentioned Swain. Emery Floyd is back. Um, Brandon Cisse, the other, portal guy that's coming in from NC State. So we'll see where does he fit in the rotation for this coming year. I can't imagine he's not in the two deep somewhere. But where does Miles Norwood fit in the puzzle that is the secondary for 2025? By the way, if you guys have thoughts on this, put them in the comment section on YouTube. I enjoy it. I don't always read all of them because some of them are ugly, and some of them, blah blah blah. But debate amongst yourselves. I would love to see that there. Number 4, Rodney Newsom Jr. I keep seeing this guy's name pop up. I mentioned it the other day. He comes from Western Kentucky. Obviously, that's where Josh Simon came from. That's where Clayton White came from back in the day. From Memphis, Tennessee, originally played at a Mississippi junior college. This guy keeps popping up in feedback. They like the athleticism, 6'5", 305. The question's going to be is in the interior, and this is one question on him. I have one big question for all these guys. Is going to be like where does he stack up against the other players that are battling for the interior jobs? Guard, he's not a center. He did play some center. Is he going to be better than Marquis Anderson or Trevon Ball if they move Big Tree inside? What about Blake Franks? Blake Franks is young, but still, what? How will that battle develop? And is he better than what they have? I don't know that he isn't. I like what I hear and like what I see. I mean, I think he's a heck of a player, and he brings a lot to the table athletically. But the question is, can he win the job? Can he win a starting job on the interior at South Carolina? Because I just don't know that all 3 transfers, and they all have multiple years left. I don't know that all 3 transfers on the offensive line are going to start this year. Last year the 2 starting guards the whole season were Simpkins and Kamar Bell. I thought Simpkins played really well. I thought Bell was solid. People have different opinions on that. I tend to think I'm surprised they didn't move Ball over, but Bell started the whole year. Big Tree is one of the 5 best offensive linemen, though. I think, and a lot of other people think that too, that actually are at practice. So if you slide him in, that's one of the spots. I mean, man, if you have Big Tree and Josiah side by side on one end, that's a heck of a left side. That's a heck of a left side. Or, what? Maybe Big Tree. Maybe this is sacrilege. I mean, Big Tree could stay at left tackle and battle Josiah. I mean, I thought Josiah was excellent for a true freshman. Obviously, he's a 5-star recruit. Obviously, he's special with some of the things he can do. I don't know. I think he's just like everybody else. He's got to get better, right? I think he will. But what if Tree's the best left tackle? So then you need interior guys. A lot of what ifs, but hey, spring practice hasn't started yet. These guys are just lifting weights and working out. But that's my question on Newsom is, can he compete with what they've got? I think athletically, size-wise, strength-wise, all that, he's fine to go into the league and try to block some of these monsters that are on the D-line. Speaking of the offensive line, and he's coming from Troy, the man of mystery, because he snuck in on us and committed before we even knew about him. Boaz Stanley from Troy. And he's a Georgia boy from Oconee County High School. What I love about this guy is, number one, he's a center. Number 2, the feedback you get from people that know him and have played with him and coached him is through the roof. He is that center that they targeted in the portal that they wanted. I like him a little better, quite frankly, than the Dominic Gadis guy that I think he went to Missouri from coming over from Michigan. We'll see if I end up being right about that at the end of the day. And I like Dominic fine, but this kid's intriguing. I think he's hungrier. I think he's got a lot to prove. He's just been constant improvement throughout his career. The question I have is if he's going to replace Vershawn Lee, can he do that? Vershawn, and unfortunately, he had some unfortunate news lately too, folks. Pray for Vershawn Lee. He lost his father last week. He is. I can't say enough about the two kids from Northern Virginia on the offensive line, Vershawn Lee and Ja'Kai Moore. They're two of my favorite players I've ever dealt with. I don't talk to recruits anymore one-on-one because I'm involved with NIL and stuff, and I kind of let everybody else do the interviews. But I have talked to players through the years, and Vershawn and Ja'Kai were wing-eating championship winners back to back, and you just couldn't ask for better people. And I actually sat my wife and I at the Kentucky game in 2022 in Lexington behind Vershawn's family and met his dad and mom, and it was just heartbreaking. He passed away in a car accident. So please pray for Vershawn Lee. God, the most depressing episode of coffee ever, right? But anyway, Vershawn was a leader. His performance was solid. Did all the things centers need to do, communication, everything. Just he's going to be hard to replace. And hey, if they needed him to go play tackle, he would. So can Boaz Stanley, that would be my one big question for him, can he come in and replace a guy like that? Center is very important, the operation of your offense, all that good stuff. So that's my question with Boaz. They call him Bo Stanley. That's a Northeast Georgia name if you ever heard one. Bo Stanley, baby. Woo. But he's coming over from Troy. So all five of these guys from the group of five level, there's no FCS in here, coming from, Utah State, Bowling Green, Ball State, Western Kentucky, and then obviously Troy. And I think South Carolina under Shane Beamer, they've done a pretty good job with players like this, and they seem to find the right ones and the ones that they can tweak and get better. And all these players have been productive at that level. I mean, the offensive lineman played a ton of football last year. Miles is kind of the only one. Devontae Miles at Bowling Green didn't start. Not overly crazy with the stats, but you can see why they took him on film. Faison's obviously a 1,000-yard rusher, and at least some people at ESPN think he's going to be really good. And then Norwood, obviously, is a well-traveled football player, but I like what I saw on film. I also think Iowa State saw something in him early, Matt Campbell and those guys, and they don't miss in Ames too often. They kind of had a dip in their program for a bit because I think they did miss on some kind of around right after the pandemic time. They dipped a little bit, but they're right back up there and played for the Big 12 championship this year. So the Cyclones under Matt Campbell have been quite good. And if you ever look at their recruiting class, they don't even know what a blue chip ratio is. I mean, it's a treasure hunt. That's a good term. I just kind of came up with that treasure hunt. Anyway, if you're having a treasure hunt and you need some things for people to find, scavenger hunt, whatever, buy some coffee, GamecockCoffee.com, or some of the gourmet popcorn, Cocky Corn, or Rise and Shine New Orleans roast coffee on GamecockCoffee.com to support Garnet Trust and NIL. I didn't mention Encapsulate today because I had a lot of other off-topic stuff to talk about, but they are a sponsor as well. EncapsulateUSA.com, the magic mushroom supplements that get me going every morning along with my coffee. And you can go to encapsulateusa.com, use code JCM. Mike Morgan loves these things too, to get $10 off, free shipping for any order over 60. All right, so I'm going to probably be in quite a mood later today for the show with Phil. We'll be back starting at noon. This college football playoff stuff and SEC stuff's pissing me off. So I'm not in any mood to deal with it. So I'm not guaranteeing I'll rant, but I'm going to be very pointed about some things later and really tell you all about how it relates to Carolina. Once again, not sure if the baseball game will be on tonight or not. Stay tuned to thebigspur.com and Chief Sports South Carolina for all of that. All right, folks, JC Shurburtt, this has been Coffee. I'm out. Holla at you this afternoon.